The experience with the Muslim community may lead you to believe that maybe it's better that we live in a society that bans alcohol, that the government must just take it away, since, well, we can't all become Muslim. Well, America tried it in 1917 when it wrote into the Constitution the Prohibition Act, which was the banning of the manufacturing and consumption of alcohol. It was years in the making because alcohol abuse was rampant in society and many families were struggling with abusive husbands and abusive fathers, and even companies like the Ford company were struggling with workers who were constantly drunk. But what the prohibition did was not to minimize alcohol consumption. In fact, after the Prohibition Act, the consumption of illicit alcohol blew up. There were underground speakeasies everywhere, which were unregulated drinking establishments. The underground alcohol market became so lucrative that it gave birth to the mafia, who essentially traded in bootlegged alcohol and moonshine. That era gave us icons such as Al Capone. The Prohibition Act did the opposite of what it was supposed to do. It did not improve the moral fiber of society. In fact, it teared it to its last strings. And by the time the Great Depression came around the 20s, the government was absolutely desperate for the revenues that could be generated from alcohol. Once alcohol is deeply embedded into a society, it is nearly impossible to get it out. Maybe then we should just try to relook at our relationship with spirituality and alcohol.
So I'm in Alex. I'm here to meet Sabich. He is a healer, first of all, but he also works within the entertainment industry. He works with alcohol brands, and he's also the co-host and founder of one of the biggest music channels on YouTube in the country. So I wanted to speak to him to share his insights as to what he thinks is the relationship between alcohol and spirituality for us as a people.
Ties in with the question that I wanted to ask you, unrelated to this, is that then you bring alcohol into the mix. As I said, I'm working on an episode that deals with alcohol and spirituality in the Black community. So the particular thing I want to understand from you is that in all the rituals and processes, most anyway, of ours, especially in the current iteration of Bongom and whatever, alcohol is a fundamental aspect of it. I want to know from you, does alcohol have spiritual qualities in and of itself?
Nah, I don't believe that. How many hectoliters of alcohol have we given as libations and nothing's changed for Black people? We should actually interrogate it. The one for alcohol, is that actually not our ancestors saying to us, no, but Bafetu, this is what killed us when they introduced it to us. So with them introducing it to us, we want you guys to heal from this. It's a sickness. Now we're misinterpreting it as something ritualistic. Our great-grandfathers who were still healers became alcoholics. And now we want to... The illness that he presents with, it's a point of strength. It's not. And we need to snap out of that belief. as healers, because how does Castle Milk Stout suddenly represent Ancestors Day? How did we get to that? Milk Stout, the brand, Black Label Yoneza, daily. So why do we then believe for the very same creators of this thing that's killing our society wants to celebrate your heritage? We need to interrogate those things. Okay, are we not perpetuating an illness that our ancestors that they are coming back and saying, heal yourself from this thing, work through your issues, or connect with us without you needing to why I say this is that you don't need alcohol to dream. You don't need alcohol for you guys are going to record. I didn't listen if I can tell for this to happen. It happened, right? So hardi like a moya. Moya belongs to itself, and moya does not necessarily need something as intrusive and as destructive as alcohol for it to exist. I myself do drink alcohol, and my relationship with it is very unhealthy, and I'll be the first person to admit, because remember, prior to Khobangaka, you have the calling, and then you start observing. I mean, for me, the confirmation, I think I was 19. Yeah, I was 19. Always known that I was going to be a healer, and then I got the confirmation, and then you get told, no, tshela jwala bo boredi, tshela jwala bo bosweu, tshela jwala ba Sotho. Hectoliters every single year. Healers pour as libations in honor of their ancestors. Mara, there's no real tangible result that can say our quality of life as a collective has changed. We need to interrogate that. Alcohol ke flop buffet.
So what is the place of alcohol in spirituality? Because I'm taking this from alcoholic beverage has always been part of libations since forever.
Yes.
And this is true across all societies.
Yes.
African, Western, everywhere you go, there's always been some kind of alcoholic beverage, be it mkomboti, be it wine, be it fermented this, fermented that. You know, the Bible, you know, there's always been alcohol involved in anything to do with offerings. Why is that?
From my understanding is that, well, how do I put this? I believe that Jwala has time and space for, just like everything else. You can only grow a mango at a certain time of the year. Go the new year, which is spring in the African calendar. When there's abundance, you know, the flowers are blooming, the fruits, this, that, and the other. We celebrate Kajwala, right? So as a celebration, but not to then say this is, and I know I did say existence is spiritual. Alcohol forms part of that spiritual existence, right? But it's not the be all. You can't lead Kajwala. Because if we lead Kajwala, then what about churches like the ZCC who say you can't drink alcohol? What about Mapostola who like, no, you know, alcohol is not supposed to be there? How is it that Rona, we want to take something that exists? Yes, it does exist for enjoyment. And now we want to make it such an integral part of our spiritual coding. It can't be that. It can't be. Because as I said to you, Azangra Tela Lijwala Mufasi, to speak to mine or your ancestors when it comes to this recording. Don't know what the impact of this recording is, but it happened for its own sake. So Moya, Was it from the time you're born to the time you die, all you do is breathe. We describe our state of being. Umoya wakho kutlasi, umoya wami uphakeme. You don't see umoya, but you see its impact when it's windy. Can't uzobona umoya. Why? Because the trees are, the leaves are falling off, or the trees. The wind blows. You can feel it. You can't see it. The only time you can see it is if you see a tree shaking, from side to side. The moment we then add things like excessive use of alcohol, the spiritual process in and of itself, right, disturb, because spiritual processes, all of them requires regulation of self, be it body. That's why sometimes when you're about to conduct certain rituals, go to the river Mara without having had sex, for instance, as an example, or on your period, as an example. It's not to say you can't go to the water when you have had sex or when you're on your period. Nobody's saying that you can't go to the water, but for a spiritual process, when you want a certain outcome, regulate yourself from these things to get that which you are asking the world to deliver to you. So it's not a punishment, and I think maybe this is a better way of putting it. Rona, we've somehow started believing that regulation is punishment. Yes. And we for as long as we have that as a belief, people will always find a way to continue interrupting us along the way by exploiting those moments of happiness and saying, yeah, because batavilo one phahla all the time casual, because they want more without any type of regulation. But looking above sharp. But also the other part, which is something that we've not I haven't necessarily heard of, the state of being of the healer when it comes to them drinking alcohol and why we drink alcohol. Because stress. It's our clients. It's not because it's got anything to do with the fact that I'm a healer. When I think I got a buyer who will never touch alcohol. It was unusual at all. Prior to twice, I think album has 6-7 years unusual at all. And I just stopped drinking alcohol. Kabuya, the entire process, I think it was like a lockdown. Because that silence suddenly made me realize, there's a lot going on, and I didn't have an outlet. I couldn't access nature. I couldn't access the water. So in absence of that, then alcohol becomes the first thing that sensible thing that I'm going to do. Healers, just like everybody else, to work a molestation, we're just as capable of doing those things. Stealing, we're just as capable of doing those things. Healers, we ourselves have not even created mechanisms or even touched back to the mechanisms that had always been available to us outside of alcohol to heal. I saw a conversation, I haven't listened to it yet, how townships impact spirituality. Living in a township as a healer, because it's a high concentration of people, a high concentration of energies, which has nowhere to diffuse to.
Hey, I have to say, we're in Alex right now.
Yes.
There's people everywhere.
On
top of each other.
Yeah, right on top of each other. So imagine as a hypersensitive person,
Yay!
what it actually does to you. It looks sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks sharp. So Lorona as healers, this is why I'm actually very big on this thing. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to come off as this holy man that doesn't do all of these things. But I must also be honest enough to say, based on where I am physically, this is what pushes me in the direction of drinking. Yeah. Because under normal circumstances, I would have gone to the mountain, for 3-4 days. Keep on, camping.
So in your view, in your personal experience, it's more of an escape of there's nothing else to do but to drink.
100%. I want Lirona because we've been displaced as healers. Now there's a huge rise in us doing the TikTok live, giving people advice, unsolicited. Everybody wants their own blog. Yeah. Everybody ubatla twasisa. Everybody expect that just because of twasisa you must have a long line of clients. Sometimes twasa is because you are just healing the wounds that were caused by the very ancestors that sent us in the direction. We haven't had that conversation extensively. Yes, and it's something that we need to touch on sometimes because it's not like my grandfather left me land and cows and whatnot. We expect that I tell people who come to me, this person said so how does that make sense?
In the book, I have a whole chapter that covers that aspect.
Yeah.
So I have a theory that I want to run past you around the use of alcohol in the context of spirituality. You've heard of ayahuasca, right?
Yes.
You've heard of the mushrooms and whatever. Yes. So there are all these substances, and from a chemistry perspective, from a chemical perspective, alcohol is classified as a psychoactive drug.
Yes.
Like those things, in that it alters your mind, the chemicals in your mind. So in the context of these other substances, your ayahuasca, whatever, it is believed that they are like portals.
Yes.
They usher you through portals. So now, with that thought, I was like, something in me believes that alcohol is also a portal. If it's like different taxis going to different places. If you take ayahuasca, you go to a particular place. If you take what do they call it? MD. Anyway, I'll get the name. MDM. Yes. If you take MDM, it takes you to because people say, if you take cocaine, you go to a particular place. If I feel like all of these things are portals because and I think it would be hard to hear that concept because we sort of tend to think of portals as having a particular sentimental theme. Yes. And I want to interrogate the idea that is alcohol also a portal? And the reason I'm saying this is in the context of spirituality, is that when we use alcohol, and I'm now talking in the context of Obongo, and particularly with Ntwaso and those things, I've spent through my photography work, I've spent close to 7-8 years traveling around the country, documenting the Ntwaso and whatever. And I've seen a very tangible difference between the Ntwaso that have alcohol moderately, and that have heavy alcohol. There's a very, very different, distinct energy in all of those things. It's the same as, when you get drums made of wood and then you get the batazalizeng.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a particular feel to it. Now, because I'm not that way inclined, I don't know. This is just what I'm suspecting. This is what I'm observing. Would you say that alcohol is a does create a kind of portal within spirituality?
100%.
That what realm do you think the alcohol opens up to?
The realm of destruction.
Okay.
Yeah. We go out, go to Melville, have a couple of drinks. Soba Vusi, Hadu one would never drive his car. Iran Rajwad. What Tom Cop? Soba Vusi would let a woman pass. Drunk Vusi is going to slap on the ass. That's destruction. So alcohol is exactly that. It was created. That's why there's heavy advertising on it. I work in the industry. It is what it is. But that's why it's so important. And that's why the advertising has become more and more targeted. When you and I were younger, alcohol was a big taboo. Now, when I'm a fan of the taboo around women drinking excessively, for some odd reason, now we believe that was decided by men. The whiskey, the whatnot. They were like, no, but it's messing up your system. That's why you mustn't. It's got nothing to do with men. But we need somebody to blame, because why? We're trying to mimic somebody else and how they behave. You touched on, especially in the Bible, Katabaya turning, water into wine. I mean, didn't explicitly say that, but you were alluding to that. It's become somewhat of an excuse for people to just drink all the time. Why? Because it's said in the Bible. Even somebody who's not Christian will even quote the Bible. Yeah, I'm like, Jesus turned water into wine as an excuse. Alcohol has a social function. Komanyalong. If it's fermented, what alcohol truly is in the context. Gesogam or maize or whatever that's just been left to do its own natural thing with minimal human intervention. Yeah, no. They must flavor it to make it more palatable. They must give it to you with bells and whistles. They must convince you. Yes. When you do it, you can't make Jwala Soto to be more. I know. Once, even if you store it for longer than 100 days, as an example, it's never going to. If it peaks at 5%, it's always going to peak at 5%. Whether it's 100 days or whatever beyond. Somebody is going to do something at in this 750ml bottle. There's 30 shots. And I give 50% alcohol. First shot, why would man? Alright, man. Into young sharp. Yeah. The first shot, you can feel no. If we were to actually interrogate that feeling, gives you the high, but the day after, the crash is our problem. The next day, maratlo ba functional. O wa jwala ba sekgowa o tlo bo batla gape le gape over and over again gore a fole. We've started believing gore jwala ba fodisa. Poison e keeping your poison. So when you're chasing that high, ya jwala, you don't have time to even think ahead. What does the next season look like? If you're always drunk, even as a healer, what is the custodians of this space that I exist in? What are they telling me about the rains? What are they telling me about what we must eat, what we mustn't eat? You don't do that because yeah. So when you're not doing that, it means you're not in and of itself. How it's presented to you now and its current formation is meant to keep you in that state. What are you talking about, bro? Like I mean, go to a rugby match, go to a soccer match. Re thoma re thabile, re nwe jwala, re celebrate, then jigi re kwazane. Even if we're members of the same team, the argument may be about we're not rata Steve Lukole or rata Shoes Mushwe.
Like what you're saying sort of confirms the stats that which reminds me of COVID, where doctors were saying emergency rooms were empty. I remember it was in December. There were doctors who were taking videos in the emergency ward. They're like, there's no one here. And they were like, this proves that alcohol is the main cause of all injuries.
Yeah.
Most
The
injuries,
evidence is there.
in whatever form, be it car accidents, stabbing, assault,
beatings, all of that.
alcohol is, and it sort of goes back to the portal idea.
Yes.
That
Remember with portals, no? We mustn't think of portals as to another world. The other world is all in here in your mind. Yeah. Because remember, the dreaming, the thinking, it all happens in here. So the best of Vusi is in here, so much as the worst of Vusi is also in here. That's why how about Dutch courage?
yes,
How about Kadilotseo?
and people who do ayahuasca, they say that you journey into yourself.
Yes.
You're not going anywhere.
You're not.
You're just going deeper within yourself.
And let's interrogate that a little bit further, ayahuasca, when speaking about the psychoactive nature of these things that we consume. Ayahuasca, before we consume, there's no sugar allowed, no meat allowed. You eat in its purest, for you to get the maximum kind of output out of it.
Yes, your body to be able to absorb it properly.
Absorb all of it.
Yes.
There are certain things that are child before you go. So they prepare you mentally and physically before you get there. With alcohol, you don't need to. You just have to open a bottle way in. So why alcohol is so important for a system to operate? If a system operates off of your distraction, it's going to throw things at you all the time that are created to destroy you. You're going to say virginity testing is a violation, whereas you don't see it as protection of the young girls who are ordinarily would not have the voice. We don't see the flip side of that. We don't see that virginity testing would then dictate there wouldn't be a need for abortion. Why? Because nobody's pregnant. The boys, they'll find ways to pleasure themselves. It's their nature. They are less. Domkop is a terrible word that I've just used. But the protection of the sacred nature of sex, the sacred nature of procreation, alcohol liona ya disturb unto, because a boy, for the most part, men as well, for the most part, have now turned alcohol into something transactional for sex. Even women believe it. It should remind us, Joanna, man, this thing are coward, and it in its many kind of iterations, through violence, a woman abespat asatsebe go spatisitse ke mang, a man aspatise motho asatsebe go mo spatisitse atla to a person like Ashley, but I went out there in the world gona le ngwana wa gago, yeah, but tshwarisitse motho baiki. Those things were created to protect the integrity, because we would know a child who is born in a setting that is wholesome is good for our community. But a child that is born out of, I guess, wedlock, as lack of a better word, brings shame to the community, because it means we, the community, have failed both the man and the woman who are involved in this act, which we call an abomination. Now, tshwantse re lo batlana le ntate wa ngwana, or mele siyofaka lo mntwana esibayeni sobona ukuthi wa lekhaya or not. Why? Because we stopped trusting each other. So that mechanism, ukufaka umntwana esibayeni ukubona ukuthi waleli khaya, comes as a consequence of the ancestors are saying. Unfortunately, because you guys, whether it's intentional or not, are not living to the basic fundamental rules of existence of your community and its success, we are giving you a new ritual or a new process to at least at an individual level within Esbayasga Moetlo. For example, to make sure we have to do this. We don't see that as a response. In essence, what I'm saying was even spirituality in and of itself, we don't want to move with the times. The times have changed. And the ancestors are saying you need to evolve, Lilona. %100%. We need to stop seeing it as an important and integral part of Khupahla. It's not. It's not. Because why Upahla every day in our communities there'd be no need to make Uchwala every day. What are we celebrating? And it's Upahla every day. So why do we believe that it's such an important process, Upahla? When you come to me before I give you treatment generally, but I always tell people, it's like, no, I'm just doing take it enough you saw this person, quote me and what came out of that consultation. They'll come to you and then they'll let you know if you and I are supposed to walk this journey together. No alcohol. Just in the same way, like badges of honor now. Where does this belief we're gonna slaughter a goat and then everybody here is into where does that come from? The ritual that every single ancestor of every single household, the ritual that they want is for you guys to come along, to get along. Idlani nonke, whether nidla ipapa with cabbage or you are eating a T-bone steak, filet mignon. Are you eating it? What's the environment? Even in the background, as we're sitting here, there's no traditional anything going on. Any ancestor sitting there and watching is like, my descendants are together. Kumnandi. That's the ritual. Related alcohol, it's an important thing. To a point where, look into a song, something that you've experienced. Case 10 Juang, we lo etsang ka ntho tseo mfethu. O lo etsang ka ntho eo. Let's just interrogate even that. Why? What's the significance of that? Because if anything, as Kobela, you would know you must be selfless. So therefore, like let the people enjoy. Naketanga 6-pack. I can consume 6-pack in my own time, whether I get sharper in one sitting or gain slowly over a certain period. It lo fela. Mara di case say 10. And why do I feel the need to take alcohol? What? Yeah, not alcohol. And now there's a new added pressure where the ceremony, the homecoming ceremony, so who be what deco, so who be all of these things. And it's like, what? Yeah, the ceremony itself cost 100,000 rand. 100,000 rand. Go batlega my key. Go batlega this. Tshwantse reke that. I mean, I do speak to. Well, I avoid it, but every so often on occasion when I do speak to healers who are my contemporaries, una lo mongwe re ena list ya gae o faka le suit le vaslap from Mathosa na gae. Now you tell me, what does that actually do for spirituality? Outside of the fact that when you've got so much control that Mathosa na gae who have this illness ya moya wa kudisana physically and mentally, moya wa kudisana, mutuki yo wa kula, broke as hell, mara still ura rekele suit. This is after saupatets, after all of these sacrifices. with life as they know it. And when you genuinely believe for something to get a suit at the end of all of that.
Okay.
What this highlights is that the effects of alcohol in history don't come from the chemical content, but the role it played in society. Contextually speaking, people did not offer alcohol because it had some higher divine or esoteric potency. People offered alcohol because it is what they had. Not only that, but they gave what they believed was their best that they could offer. Umqombothi takes time and a lot of effort to make. Water, which could be used in offerings, was in most instances a scarce resource, which could not be wasted and was long believed to be the purest of elements, which made it a perfect tool for cleansing. Milk and porridges were not as abundant as we would imagine, considering that they were not bought in a store. Alcoholic beverages were offerings during libations because they were considered precious and sacred. One of the most important roles that alcohol played in historical African societies is in how it brought people together. Traditional beer is extremely nutritious and has very low alcohol composition, and as such, the gatherings were far more about social interaction than they were for escapism. People gathered almost out of duty towards strengthening the community, and the culture and the nature of traditional beverages did so without causing physiological damage to the collective body of the people. Alcohol was a tool for social cohesion and a crucial component in a community's sense of spiritual self-expression. So what Christian colonization did was to destroy the cultural system and the spiritual context that alcohol functioned in. We have to remember that the missionaries were as much a tool of capitalism as they were an instrument of disempowerment. Their role was to strip away the people's connection to their divinity and to turn them into tools for the machine, for commerce, for industry. So when the work of the missionaries were done, the people had no culture of their own. Christianity demonized every aspect of blackness and Africanness, and sort of convince people that all they could offer God was their suffering. The capitalist machinery, on the other hand, needed a workforce that found nobility in suffering. Christian missionaries then managed to portray whiteness as the benchmark of religious purity and blackness as a pit from which people must crawl out of. And because of that, alcohol became a very important part of the machinery of colonization. It was the lubricant. It lubricated the machine of capitalism and oppression and the way in which Black people viewed themselves and their way and their place in society. What would surprise you, dear listener, is what the most effective cure for substance abuse reveals about the connection between people, alcohol, and spirituality. For the native peoples of the Americas, alcohol was a totally foreign concept. As they came to grips with the problem, they found that the best way to help someone who was struggling with alcohol abuse was to integrate them into a strong cultural system, was to reintegrate them into a strong cultural system. In modern communities where these strategies and interventions were introduced, people reported on how important the role of spirituality was in their journey to recovery. Many indigenous people who had overcome alcohol addiction mentioned how they came to realize that they could not quit on their own and eventually turned to a higher power from which they could draw strength, and they turned to their community and the community's embrace to find strength. Most importantly, they spoke about how spiritual experiences helped in reducing cravings for alcohol. These spiritual experiences involved communal dances and gatherings, and what is most surprising amongst the Native American and Australian intervention programs is how the concept of being seen and being treated as a cultural elder became a pivotal factor in people finding value within themselves. And it was in this sense of value that they found the strength to quit. Many people reported that being seen as someone important in the community, someone with something valuable to offer, helped tremendously well in helping them to recover. It was the idea of being held accountable and being expected to be an active member of society that helped a lot of people to feel like their lives were actually worth something. The success of these programs helped to prove that cultural and traditional heritage play an extremely important role in helping people overcome alcoholism. And nowhere is this more evident than in the most famous alcohol intervention program in the whole world, the 12 Steps program from Alcoholics Anonymous. I think all of us through TV or movies have come across or heard of the 12-step program. But do you actually know what the actual 12 steps are? The 12 steps are a form of declaration, a commitment. Number 1, we admit we are powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. Number 2, we believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore our sanity. Number 3, we make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Number 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Number 5, we admit to God, to ourselves, and to our community the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects from our character. Number 7, we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, we make a list of people we have harmed and became willing to make amends with them all. Number 9, we make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so will cause injury to us or others. Number 10, to continue to take personal inventory when we were wrong and promptly admitted it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry them out. Number 12, having a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. What you will notice with the 12 steps is that nearly every single one of them is based on a deep spiritual and cultural connection with yourself, with your community, and with the divine. I have a confession to make. Not so long ago, I lost a family member to alcohol. You get that call that many black families wait years to get, probably in the middle of the night. It's probably from someone you know telling you something that you've been knowing was going to come. The thing about losing someone in your family to substances, to alcohol, is that it makes you question a lot of things. For me, I questioned my memories. To lose someone to substances, you lose more than you think that you do. You find yourself mourning things that didn't happen. You mourn memories that you will never have. You mourn memories you never had. This episode for me was a way of trying to make sense of the loss. As a creative, if you want to make sense of life, you create.
I remember being at the mortuary and asking myself, what happens to a person who passes away and they had so completely and wholly given themselves to substances, alcohol. And what does dying with that state of being, what does that mean for you, for that person, for the afterlife? So I don't think that particular answer I got, but what I have learned through making this episode, which took months, by the way, took a couple of months to put this episode together. What I've learned is that we are nothing without community. At its core, spirituality does not exist for its own sake. You can't really be a deeply spiritual person and be alone, as it were. Spirituality is a function of being in the world, not out of it. My thoughts on this topic right now is, let's speak about umsamo when you are emsamo. I imagine it as a space that exists also on the other side, in that when I set emsamo and call on my people, the same thing is happening on the other side. We are both gathering, we are all gathering around to the same point. In that sense, candles, I understand, they bring light, and light is something that you would want to bring to anyone in any dimension. It is the purest, I guess, element in the universe, as it were. Water, I understand, on earth, it is the most ancient of element, and the one that is most vital to life. That I understand. Even to a large extent, I get umqombothi. If you are speaking to people from whose lineage you come, historically, it would be something that would have been important to them in their context. I get umqombothi, even though it's not something that you would use on a regular basis, but I understand it. Mpepo, my basic understanding of it is, in a way, it helps you to physiologically situate yourself in a space where you are thinking about the connection that you're making. I'm sure, I know that there are other elements to it, but that's my basic understanding of it. Spirits, brandy, vodka, whiskey, I don't understand. I don't understand it in that space of communing with those on the other side. I don't understand who I am communing with and how I am communing with them, and why that element. My father loved tea. This is something that the both of us have in common. If I were to make tea and put it there and drink it, I get it that he is on the other side and we are having that moment together. When I speak of hard liquor, those spirits, I don't understand who I'm inviting and why I am inviting them in that particular way. What I'm saying is that I am conflicted.
And this is purely from a logic perspective. If there is some spiritual quality to it, some esoteric quality to it, I would love to know what that is. And I'm not saying that we should only use only logic when it comes to spirituality, because to a very large extent, spirituality is not logical. But for now, I will not be using those for me until, I guess, I understand better. This episode I dedicate to anyone who is struggling with substances, or anyone who has a family member who is in that space. My name is Vusums Nlande. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Journey Kwantu. I wish you light, I wish you courage, and I wish you all the very best on your journey. Makwande. And a special shout out to Gwena Makato, who helped with sound engineering for this episode. It is truly appreciated.